Sometimes life throws you a curveball that doesn't just bend, it shatters everything you thought was real. I remember that Friday like it was etched into my bones. August 22nd, 25. The air outside was thick, heavy with that late summer humidity that clings to your skin like a bad dream you can't shake off. I was sitting on the front steps of my house, staring at the cracks in the driveway, waiting for a stranger to walk up and tell me if the thing haunting my home was real or if I'd finally lost my mind. The wind whispered through the leaves of the old oak tree across the street, sounding almost like faint, distant laughter. Or was that just my nerves playing tricks? Either way, it started there, on those steps, with the sun beating down and a chill creeping up my spine that had nothing to do with the weather. Let me take you back a bit though, because this didn't start with a medium showing up at my door. No, it built up slow, like fog rolling in off a lake at dusk, until you can't see your hand in front of your face. Our house was one of those suburban relics, built in the late 80s, all sharp angles and faded siding, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood where nothing ever happened. Or so I thought when we moved in back in 20. My wife Sarah and I had 2 little boys then, barely toddlers, and we figured it was the perfect place to raise them. Spacious basement, big backyard that begged for a swing set. But from the start, there was something off about it. Not the kind of off you notice right away, like creaky floors or drafty windows. It was subtler. A shadow in the corner of your eye that vanished when you turned. A sudden drop in temperature in the mechanical room downstairs, like stepping into a walk-in freezer on a July afternoon. I'd shrug it off as bad insulation, or my imagination running wild after too many late nights at work. The neighborhood itself felt strange. Most days the streets were empty and the houses were spaced just far enough apart that you always felt a little cut off, even if people lived nearby. At night, the streetlights would flicker weakly, throwing long, uneven shadows across the lawns. And then there was the smell inside the house. Sometimes, especially in the basement, I'd notice something earthy, like damp soil after rain, mixed with a faint metallic scent, almost like old coins. It wasn't always there, but when it appeared, it stayed for hours, clinging to everything. Sarah never said anything about it. She was practical, always busy with work and the kids. But me, I couldn't ignore it. I stopped sleeping well. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house creak and shift. Sometimes, I swore I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. Slow, dragging, like someone moving in slippers. I guess I should introduce myself properly. Name's Alex. I'm in sales, always have been. The kind of guy who talks his way through life, charming clients over coffee, closing deals with a handshake and a smile. But at home, with this, whatever it was, I felt small, powerless. My boys, Tommy and little Ben, were my world. Tommy was 5, full of energy, always asking questions about everything. Ben, just 3, still clung to his blanket like it was a shield. I'd watch them play in the living room, their laughter echoing off the walls, and wonder if they felt it too. Tommy once asked why the basement was cold and sad, but kids say weird things, right? I didn't push it. Instead, I started researching. Late nights scrolling forums, reading about hauntings, spirits, the whole 9 yards. That's how I found out about the house's history. Neighbors whispered about an old lady who died in the garage doorway years ago. Heart attack, they said. And before her, an Asian family who had built the place. Rumors of a garden in the back that went wild after some tragedy. I didn't know details, but it gnawed at me. Things escalated slowly, like a pot simmering on the stove until it boils over. It started with small stuff. Toys moving on their own, not dramatically, just a truck rolling a few inches across the floor when no one was looking. Then the dreams, vivid ones, where I'd wake up sweating, heart pounding, convinced someone was standing at the foot of the bed. A figure, indistinct, radiating this deep, aching sadness that soaked into me like rain. I'd bolt upright, fumbling for the light, but nothing was there. Just the hum of the AC and Sarah's steady breathing beside me. I tried ignoring it, but it pushed back. One night, I was in the bathroom, door cracked open for the hall light, brushing my teeth. The mirror fogged up from the sink steam, and as I wiped it clear, I saw it, a shadow gliding past the doorway. Not human-shaped exactly, but close enough. Tall, hunched, like an old man shuffling away. I dropped to the toothbrush, splashed water on my face, told myself it was exhaustion. but the chill stayed with me, prickling my skin like needles. That's when I hit my breaking point. The boys started having nightmares. Tommy woke up crying about the sad man in the basement. Ben clutched his blanket tighter, refusing to go downstairs. Sarah chalked it up to them feeding off my stress, but I knew better. I visited the church down the road, a small stone building with stained glass windows that glowed like embers in the evening light. The first time, I just sat in a pew, the scent of incense heavy in the air, whispering prayers I hadn't said since childhood. It helped a little. The disturbances quieted. I even christened the boys' toys and blankets with a makeshift blessing, sprinkling water from the tap while muttering words about peace and protection. Silly maybe, but it felt right. The second church visit was a bust. I stopped by on a Sunday evening around 5:30 after work. The doors were locked, the parking lot empty except for a man and his young son waiting for late mass. We chatted under the fading sun, the air cooling, crickets starting their chorus. "Church is closed till 7, he said, his boy kicking pebbles. I nodded, climbed back in my car, and prayed right there, engine idling. "Keep it peaceful," I whispered to whatever was listening, "just until I figure this out." No holy water that day. I bought vials from the dollar store, but fate or something kept me from using them. Maybe it wasn't needed. This thing, it wasn't evil. Not a demon scratching at the walls. It was lost, sad, like an echo of unhappiness trapped in the bricks. In the days leading up to the medium's visit, things settled into an uneasy truce. I'd feel it occasionally, down in the mechanical room, a brief brush of cold air, like a hand grazing my shoulder. No malice, just a question hanging in the silence. "What's next?" I'd mutter aloud, "Soon, I'm working on it." My friend, the spiritually tuned one, called it stasis. He said spirits could linger like that, waiting. We talked over coffee one afternoon, the cafe buzzing with normal life around us, clinking cups, laughter from the barista. "You're connected to it now," he said, his eyes serious. "It chose you." That grounded me, but the anxiety built anyway. Emails back and forth with the medium. A guy named Elias I'd found through online recommendations. He seemed legit, not some TV psychic with crystals and flair. Just a quiet man who'd seen too much. The day arrived. August 22nd. Sarah left early for work, kissing me goodbye in the dim kitchen light, the smell of her shampoo lingering like a comfort. Boys at daycare, their little backpacks slung over chairs. The landscaping crew skipped our yard. Thank God. I needed quiet. I vacuumed the house obsessively, the hum of the machine drowning out my thoughts. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through windows, but the air felt heavier downstairs. I checked my phone every 5 minutes, the clock ticking like a heartbeat. When 1 p.m. neared, I stepped outside. The heat shimmered off the pavement, cicadas droning in the trees. I sat on the steps, garage door open behind me, thinking maybe the spirit, whatever it was, would prefer entering that way. The old lady's death spot, or so the neighbor said. My mind raced. What if this was all in my head? What if Elias laughed it off? But deep down, I knew. The emotion welled up as his car pulled up, a plain sedan, nothing flashy. He stepped out, tall and unassuming, with a kind face lined by years. As he walked up the driveway, our eyes met, and tears stung mine. His looked glassy too, like he felt it already. "Hey, Alex," he said, voice steady but soft. We shook hands, his grip firm, cool. "I'm Elias. Let's see what we've got here." I nodded, swallowing hard. "Thanks for coming. I don't know what to expect." He smiled faintly. "That's okay. Neither do I, sometimes. We'll figure it out together." We entered through the agure, the concrete floor echoing our footsteps. The air inside was cooler, shadowed, with that faint earthy smell tickling my nose. No immediate reaction from him. He just glanced around, calm as could be. We moved to the living room, sat on the couches. The room was bright, curtains pulled back, but a chill crept in. He shrugged on a sweater despite the heat outside. "Gets cold sometimes," he muttered, like it was normal. I fetched him water, the glass sweating in my hand. We talked, or he did mostly, about his background, spirits he'd encountered. Renovations in the backyard caught his eye through the window. the dug-up earth, fresh sod waiting. Changes like that can stir things up, he said. I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere, heart pounding. The house felt alive, watching us. Finally, we headed downstairs. The basement stairs creaked under our weight, the air growing thicker, cooler with each step. Into the mechanical room, the heart of it all, furnace humming softly, pipes groaning like old bones. Elias shivered audibly, rubbing his arms. Whoa, strong chill here. This what you feel? Yeah, I whispered, my skin crawling, like ice on your back. We leaned against the counter, the metal cold through my shirt. He chatted idly, about nothing really, then closed his eyes, centering himself. The room fell silent, save for our breathing. Mine ragged, his even. At first, nothing. Then, records, a record player, vinyls, bell-bottoms, 1970s vibe. Christmas lights, warm memories. Ring any bells? I shook my head. No, sorry, doesn't connect. He nodded, reset. Sometimes wires cross. Let me try connecting to you first. I leaned back, bowed my head, tried to clear my mind. Thoughts swirled. Work, kids, that shadow in the hall. Impossible to empty. You've got a big throat chakra, he said after a moment. You communicate a lot. Need to express. I chuckled weakly. Sales guy, guilty. And yeah, I emailed you a ton. Then an old injury. Left leg, knee pain. Broke my ankle as a kid. Knee acts up sometimes. Okay, that hit home. Dubious no more. Now, the spirit. Elias focused, and I saw him flinch. Oh, this one's not happy. Never was. Older Chinese man, formal, even casual, slacks, button up, tall plants, tomatoes maybe, vines in the garden. My pulse quickened. The previous owners were Asian, garden in the back, overgrown when we moved in. He paused. Unhappy couple? Wait, did you say that? No? Couple? A chill ran deeper. Two? He exhaled. This is heavy. Let's go upstairs. Back in the family room, sunlight pouring in, but the atmosphere thickened. Couches soft under us, but tension coiled like a spring. Elias talked about spirit guides. Everyone has one, watching over. Near misses in life, that's them. He had 8, plus a bouncer to filter the noise. Constant chatter, he said, eyes distant. Like living in a crowded room. I respected him then, truly. One spirit had nearly broken me. His life was a symphony of them. The solution, he said finally, soul rescue, help it move on. Yes, I breathed. That's what I want. He consulted his guides, eyes closed, a nod. Agreed. He described the afterlife. No senses, just existence in fog. Trapped, lingering in familiar places. Emotions as guides. Purgatory, maybe. A soul rescue creates light, draws them out. We'll make a protective white light, he said. Just for this one. Freaked me out, but his calm soothed. We closed eyes. No chance, just focus. Envision white light above us. Bright, constant. I tried. Blank white, like staring at snow. Prayed silently. Find peace, leave us. Opened eyes once, the ceiling beam glowed brighter, almost blue-tinged. Sun? Maybe, but timing felt divine. Elias narrated, he's sorry for the trouble. Thanks you, sees the light, blesses your family, lost his way, liked the house, but it's yours now. You're good. He's going. Tears welled. In my mind, white flickered dark briefly, then bright again. The spirit passing? Elias sighed, opened eyes. Done. Relief washed over me, but unease lingered. He talked more, gatherings for sensitives, distractions if spirits return. Bathroom's safe, he chuckled. They avoid it. Ironic, my sighting was there. Then, my guide. He channeled. Superman, stand tall, chest out. Channel strength. 2 nights prior, I'd watched Justice League. Coincidence? No. We parted ways, him driving off into the afternoon haze. House felt lighter, but echoes remained. That night, lying in bed, silence profound. No chills. But in dreams, a faint thank you whispered. The sad man at peace. Yet sometimes, in quiet moments, I wonder, was he alone, or does the fog hide more? And that final thought lingers, cold as basement air. In helping one lost soul, did I invite others to find me? The gleam of her smile. The moment I saw her standing in our doorway, the world felt whole again. It was like the sun breaking through a week of storm clouds, her smile as radiant as ever, her eyes catching the morning light in that way that always made my heart stutter. I'd spent 7 days in a hospital room, surrounded by the sterile hum of machines, the sharp tang of antiseptic, and the weight of dread that clung to me like damp fog. But there she was, Clara, my Clara, alive, untouched, perfect. I thought God had answered my prayers. I thought I had been given a second chance. But now, standing in our empty bedroom, staring at the flat, untouched bed where she'd been just moments before, I realized the truth was something far colder, far darker. My name's Donovan. I'm an engineer, 29 years old. The kind of guy who solves problems with logic, who builds things that last. 5 years ago, Clara walked into my life like a melody I didn't know I needed. I was fresh out of college, all ambition and late-night coffee runs, when I met her at a friend's barbecue in San Diego. She was wearing a yellow sundress, her laugh cutting through the chatter like a bell, and I was done for. She was a graphic designer, always sketching in a little notebook, her fingers stained with ink. She brought color to my world, showed me love, taught me how to slow down and feel the moments we shared. A year later, I asked her to move in, and we built a life together in a house off the California coast, where the ocean's roar was our nightly lullaby, and the salt air clung to everything we owned. Those years were a dream I didn't want to wake from. My career took off. Promotions, respect, money pouring in faster than I could spend it. We bought a house, a 2-story with big windows that let the sunset paint the walls gold. Clara would dance barefoot in the living room, humming to records she'd found at flea markets, the needle scratching softly as the sea breeze drifted through the open windows. We talked about kids, about a future that felt so close I could taste it. I was planning to propose on our 5th anniversary, had the ring picked out, a 3-carat diamond that sparkled like her eyes when she laughed. I'd spent weeks scouring jewelers, holding stones to the light, searching for the one that matched her radiance. When I found it, I knew. It was her, in every facet, every gleam. I hid it in a locked drawer, counting down the days to our anniversary dinner at her favorite restaurant, a little Italian place with candlelit tables and the best tiramisu in town. But then the call came. A week before our anniversary, my phone buzzed while I was at work, the screen flashing an unknown number. The voice on the other end was calm, too calm, saying Clara had been in an accident. A car crash. She was in the ICU. I don't remember the drive to the hospital, just the blur of traffic lights and the squeal of tires as I broke every law to get to her. The hospital was a maze of white walls and beeping monitors, the air heavy with bleach and fear. When I found her room, my knees buckled. Clara, my vibrant, laughing Clara, lay there, bruised and bloodied, tubes snaking from her arms and nose, machines forcing life into her body. Her mother, Ellen, sat beside her, eyes red and swollen, clutching a tissue like it was the only thing keeping her together. The doctor spoke in measured tones, tossing around words like critical and stabilize, but I barely heard them. I fell to my knees, praying to a God I hadn't spoken to in years, begging for her to come back to me. I stayed by her side for a week, sleeping in a plastic chair that creaked every time I shifted, the hospital's fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Ellen and I took turns holding Clara's hand, her skin cold despite the warmth of the room. I talked to her, told her about the ring, about the life we'd have when she woke up. The nurses were kind, bringing me coffee that tasted like ash, but their eyes held pity I couldn't stand. On the 7th day, I went home to shower, to sleep in our bed for the first time in a week. The house felt wrong without her, too quiet, the air stale, the ocean's roar outside more mournful than soothing. I collapsed into bed, the sheets still smelling faintly of her lavender shampoo, and slept like the dead. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the bedroom window, the gulls crying outside. I brushed my teeth, the mint toothpaste sharp against the fog of exhaustion, and got dressed, pulling on jeans and a shirt Clara always said made my eyes look brighter. I grabbed my wallet and keys, ready to head back to the hospital, when I opened the front door. And there she was, Clara. Standing on the porch, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her face clear of bruises, her eyes sparkling like they always did. She wore the white blouse she loved, the one with the tiny embroidered flowers, and her smile lit up the world. My heart leapt, tears stinging my eyes as I thanked God, the universe, anything that had brought her back to me. "Clara," I choked out, stepping forward to wrap her in my arms. But she stepped back, her smile faltering for a split second, and something cold slithered through me. Without a word, she moved past me, her steps light, almost floating, as she glided into the house. I followed, dazed, watching her move through the living room with that effortless grace she'd always had. She went straight to our bedroom, climbed onto the bed, and slipped under the covers, curling up like she always did when she needed a nap. I stood there, heart pounding with relief, and flicked off the light to let her rest. The room dimmed, the only sound the distant crash of waves and the faint creak of the house settling. I spent the next few hours in a haze, tidying the kitchen, folding laundry, anything to keep busy while she slept. The ring was still in my pocket. I'd grabbed it before leaving the bedroom, thinking maybe I'd propose right then, right there, no more waiting. I couldn't lose her again. Around noon, I went to check on her, the ring box heavy in my hand. The bedroom was quiet, the air cool despite the open window. She was still under the covers, unmoving, a soft lump in the bed. I called her name softly. "Clara?" No response. I flicked on the light, the bulb casting a harsh glow across the room, and sat on the edge of the bed. My hand hovered over the covers, ready to touch her, to wake her with a kiss. Then my phone rang, shrill and jarring. I fumbled it out of my pocket, saw Ellen's name on the screen, and stepped into the hallway to answer, not wanting to disturb Clara. Ellen's voice was a sob, barely coherent. "She's gone, Donovan. She's gone." I frowned, confused. "No, Ellen, she's here. She's home, in bed." Her wail cut through me like a knife. "She's gone. She loved you so much. I'm so sorry." The line went dead. My hand shook as I stared at the phone, the words not making sense. Gone? She was right here. I turned back to the bedroom, my voice trembling as I stepped inside. "Sweetie, did you not tell your mother?" The words died in my throat. The bed was flat, the covers smooth, untouched. No lump, no Clara. The air turned heavy, like I was breathing through water. My blood ran cold, my legs weak as I stumbled forward, ripping the blankets back. Nothing. Just the empty mattress, the sheets cold under my hands. The ring box slipped from my pocket, hitting the floor with a soft thud. I sank to my knees, my breath coming in sharp gasps, the room spinning. She'd been here. I'd seen her. Her smile, her eyes, the way she'd glided to the bed. I hadn't imagined it. I couldn't have. The house was too quiet, the ocean's roar outside now a distant hum. I sat there for hours, staring at the bed, waiting for her to come back, to explain. But the room stayed empty, the light harsh and unyielding. I called Ellen back, my voice hollow, and she told me the truth through sobs. Clara had died that morning, just after dawn. Her heart had given out, the injuries too much. I didn't tell her what I'd seen. How could I? They'd think I was crazy, grief twisting my mind. But I knew what I'd seen, what I'd felt. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt alive, watching me. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the windows sounded like her footsteps, her breath. I left the bedroom light on, the ring box still on the floor where it had fallen. Around midnight, I heard it, a soft rustle, like fabric brushing against the floor. My heart stopped. I sat up, straining to listen, and there it was again, coming from the living room. I got up, legs shaking, and crept down the hall. The air was cold, the salt tang of the ocean mixing with something sweeter, like lavender. Her shampoo. "Clara?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. The living room was dark, the moonlight filtering through the big windows, casting shadows that danced across the walls. I saw her then, or thought I did, a silhouette by the couch, her shape unmistakable, her hair catching the light. I stepped forward, my hand outstretched, but she moved, gliding toward the glass door that led to the deck. The door was locked, but it didn't matter. She passed right through it, her form shimmering like heat waves on asphalt. I fumbled with the lock, yanked the door open, and ran outside. The deck was empty, the ocean roaring below, the night air cold against my skin. She was gone. I don't know how long I stood there. the wind whipping my hair, the ring box still clutched in my hand. The house felt different after that, hollow, but not empty. I started noticing things. Her sketchbook, left open on the kitchen counter, with a new drawing I hadn't seen, a rough sketch of the ocean, but with a figure standing on the shore, too tall, too blurred to be human. The smell of lavender in the bathroom, even though I had thrown out her shampoo. The faint sound of humming at night, her favorite song, drifting from the living room when I was alone. I didn't tell anyone, not Ellen, not my friends, not the therapist I saw for a few weeks before giving up. They'd say it was grief, hallucinations, my mind filling the void she'd left. But I know what I saw that morning, what I keep seeing. She's here, in the house, in the air, in the gleam of the ring I still carry in my pocket. I haven't proposed, haven't opened the box since that day. It feels wrong, like it would anchor her here when she's already halfway gone. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the ocean's roar is all I hear, I feel her. Not her warmth, not her laugh, but something colder, sadder, like a memory that doesn't know it's dead. I stand on the deck, staring at the waves, and wonder if she's waiting for me to let her go, or if she's waiting for me to follow. And every time I close my eyes, I see her smile, gleaming like a diamond, beautiful and untouchable, forever just out of reach. The weight of footsteps. The night it happened, I was weighing on a lumpy mattress in a hostel room that smelled faintly of mildew and salt, staring at the ceiling where a single bulb flickered like it was on its last breath. It was late August 25, and I'd been backpacking through Indonesia for weeks, chasing freedom in the humid air and turquoise waves. I'd landed in a quiet coastal town, one of those places that feels like it's been forgotten by time, tucked away in what used to be a Dutch colonial settlement. The hostel I'd booked online looked charming in photos. Whitewashed walls, red-tiled roof, a promise of authentic charm. But when I arrived, it felt like stepping into a memory someone else had abandoned. The paint was peeling, the air heavy with the scent of damp wood, and something sour I couldn't place. My name's Lena, by the way, 27, solo traveler, always chasing the next story to tell. But this one clings to me like damp clothes, heavy and cold. The hostel was small, just a handful of rooms off a long wooden terrace that creaked under every step. Beyond the terrace, at the back, was an old iron gate, rusted and padlocked, leading to a small cemetery overgrown with weeds. Beyond that, the skeletal remains of a Dutch church loomed, its broken spire cutting into the sky like a jagged tooth. The owner, a wiry man named Wayan, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, mentioned it casually when I checked in. "Old Dutch graves," he said, chuckling. "Don't go wandering at night." I laughed it off, but the way he said it, like a warning wrapped in a joke, stuck with me. That first day, the place was empty. No other guests, just me and the hum of cicadas outside. It should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt like the silence was holding its breath. I spent the evening exploring the town, a sleepy stretch of low buildings and fishing boats bobbing in the harbor. The air was thick with the smell of seaweed and grilled fish from street vendors. By the time I got back to the hostel, the sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky a bruised purple. Wyan was gone, leaving a note on the counter. "Back tomorrow. Lock up if you leave." I was alone. The realization hit me harder than it should have. I locked the front door, double-checked it, and retreated to my room, a small space with a single bed, a rickety desk, and a window covered by a thin, gauzy curtain. The walls were thin too, letting in every sound. The rustle of palm fronds, the distant lap of waves, the groan of the building settling into the night. I tried to sleep, but the silence was too loud. You know that kind of quiet where every tiny noise feels amplified? The creak of the bed frame when I shifted, the drip of a faucet somewhere down the hall, the faint hum of the fridge in the communal kitchen. My phone said 11:47 p.m. When I gave up, propped myself up on the pillow, and started scrolling through photos from earlier in the trip. Rice terraces, temples, smiling locals, anything to distract myself from the growing unease in my chest. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy. They came from the wooden terrace just outside my room, each step making the old boards groan like they were in pain. At first, I thought it was Wyan. Maybe checking the property, but the steps didn't have the rhythm of someone with a purpose. They were too measured, too repetitive, pacing back and forth along the terrace. Creak, creak, creak. My heart started to climb into my throat. I sat up, clutching the thin sheet to my chest, listening as the steps grew closer, then paused, right outside my window. The air in the room turned thick, like I was breathing through a wet cloth. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at the curtain, its pale fabric glowing faintly from a street lamp outside. And then I heard it, breathing. Not loud, but close, like someone was standing inches from the glass, exhaling in slow, ragged pulls. My skin prickled, every hair standing on end. I wanted to call out, to demand who was there, but my voice was trapped, lodged somewhere deep in my chest. The curtain swayed slightly, though there was no breeze, and through it, I saw it. A shadow. Tall, impossibly tall. Its edges blurred but humanoid, hunched slightly like it was carrying a weight. It didn't move, just stood there, a dark smudge against the faint light. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out the breathing for a moment. I don't know how long it lasted, seconds, minutes, but it felt like hours, frozen in that moment, waiting for the shadow to do something, anything. Then the footsteps started again, slow and heavy, moving away down the terrace, creak, creak, until they faded into silence. I didn't sleep after that. I sat up, back pressed against the wall, knees pulled to my chest, watching the window until the first gray light of dawn crept through the curtain. My mouth was dry, my hands trembling as I clutched my phone, its battery nearly dead from hours of gripping it like a lifeline. When the sun finally rose, painting the room in soft gold, I forced myself to move. I opened the door to the terrace, half expecting to see nothing, to convince myself it was a dream. But the dust on the wooden boards told a different story. In front of my window, there were marks, smudged, uneven, like someone had stood there, shifting their weight. Not footprints exactly, but disturbances, as if the dust had been pressed down by something heavy. My stomach twisted. I found Wayne in the kitchen later that morning, brewing coffee like nothing was wrong. His eyes flicked up as I walked in, and I must have looked like hell. Pale, bags under my eyes, still in the same clothes from yesterday. I told him what happened, my voice shaky, words tumbling out. The footsteps, the breathing, the shadow. He listened, stirring his coffee with a small spoon, the clink of metal against ceramic the only sound for a moment. Then he gave me that smile again, the one that didn't reach his eyes. "You're not the first," he said, almost casually. "Old place like this, it holds on to things. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt anyone." I stared at him, waiting for more, but he just sipped his coffee and turned to wipe the counter. "What does that mean?" I pressed, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "What's out there?" He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Old stories, Dutch sailors maybe, or something older. It walks sometimes, that's all." I checked out that morning, my backpack heavier than it felt the day before. I didn't look at the gate as I left, didn't glance at the cemetery or the crumbling church. The town felt different in the daylight, alive, bustling with vendors and kids on bikes, but I couldn't shake the weight of those footsteps, the shadow that was too tall, too wrong. I caught a bus to the next town, watching the coastline blur past, trying to convince myself it was just a bad night, just my imagination. But every time I close my eyes, I hear it again, creak, 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 the sound of something pacing, waiting, just beyond the curtain. And I wonder if it followed me, or if it's still there, walking the terrace, waiting for the next guest to listen too closely to the silence. The bus ride to the coastal town was a blur of green jungle and glimpses of the ocean, the kind of beauty that makes you forget the world's sharp edges. I'd been backpacking for nearly 2 months, hopping from island to island, chasing the kind of freedom you only find when you're untethered, with nothing but a backpack and a vague plan. Indonesia was everything I'd hoped, vibrant, chaotic, alive. But that town, tucked away on the southern coast of Java, felt different from the moment I stepped off the bus. The air was heavy, not just with humidity but with something else, like the weight of eyes you can't see. The streets were quiet, lined with low buildings painted in faded pastels, their shutters sagging like tired eyelids. Fishing boats bobbed in the harbor, their nets drying in the sun, and the smell of salt and smoked fish hung over everything. The hostel was at the edge of town, a squat, whitewashed building with a red-tiled roof that looked like it had seen better days. Online, it had seemed charming, rustic, authentic, with reviews praising its character. In person, it was a husk. The paint was peeling in long, curling strips, exposing gray wood beneath. The windows were cloudy, streaked with years of salt and neglect. A wooden terrace ran along the front, its boards warped and groaning under my boots as I approached. Behind the building, I could see the rusted iron gate Wyan had mentioned, and beyond it, the cemetery, small, overgrown, with crooked headstones poking through the weeds like broken teeth. The church ruins loomed further back, its stone walls crumbling, the spire jagged against the sky. It was picturesque in a haunting way, but something about it made my skin crawl, like I'd walked into a place that didn't want me there. Wyan greeted me at the counter, a wiry man in his 50s, with deep lines around his eyes and a smile that flickered like a bad connection. "Welcome, welcome," he said, handing me a key attached to a chipped wooden tag. "You're the only one tonight. Quiet, good for rest." His English was clipped, his accent thick, but there was a warmth to his voice that didn't quite match his expression. He glanced at the gate outside as he spoke, then back at me. "Don't go out there at night, okay? Old place, not safe." I laughed, thinking he was joking about thieves or stray dogs. "What, ghosts?" I teased, adjusting my backpack. He didn't laugh back, just gave that smile again and said, "Something like that." Then he handed me a map of the town and disappeared into a back room, leaving me with the faint hum of a ceiling fan and the smell of stale coffee. My room was at the end of the terrace, number 4, with a single bed, a desk that wobbled when I touched it, and a window covered by a thin, almost transparent curtain. The walls were bare except for a faded painting of a fishing boat, its colors bleeding into each other like it had been left in the rain. I dropped my backpack, changed into a tank top and shorts, and tried to shake off the unease. It was just an old building, I told myself. Old buildings have character, creaks, smells, nothing more. That evening, I wandered the town, snapping photos of the harbor at sunset, the sky bleeding orange and pink. I ate grilled fish at a street stall, the vendor chatting in broken English about the weather, the tourists who used to come before the town got too quiet. By the time I got back to the hostel, night had fallen, thick and heavy, the stars hidden behind clouds. The terrace creaked as I walked to my room, each step louder than it should have been. I locked the door behind me, checked the window latch, and tried to settle in. But the silence was oppressive, pressing against my ears like water. I could hear everything, the faint drip of a faucet, the rustle of leaves outside, the distant crash of waves. I scrolled through my phone, trying to drown it out, but the battery was low, and the single outlet in the room sparked when I plugged in my charger. Great. I lay down, the mattress springs digging into my back, and stared at the ceiling. The bulb flickered, casting shadows that seemed to shift just out of sight. I told myself it was nothing, just an old building, just my mind playing tricks after weeks of travel and too little sleep. But the unease grew, a knot in my stomach that tightened with every passing minute. I checked the time, 11:47 p.m. I closed my eyes, willing sleep to come, but it wouldn't. The silence was too loud, too alive. Then I heard it. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, each one making the terrace boards groan like they were being crushed. My eyes snapped open, heart lurching. The steps weren't rushed, not like someone sneaking or hurrying. They were slow, methodical, pacing back and forth outside my room. Creak, creak, creak. I sat up, clutching the sheet, my breath shallow. Wyan? No, he'd left hours ago. Another guest? But I was alone. The steps stopped, and for a moment, the silence was worse. Thick, suffocating, like the air itself was waiting. Then they started again, closer this time, until they stopped right outside my window. My blood ran cold. I could feel it. Someone, something standing there. The curtain was thin, barely a barrier. And through it, I saw a shadow. Tall, too tall. Its head brushing the top of the window frame, shoulders hunched like it carried a burden. The edges were blurred, like smoke, but it was there, undeniable. Then came the breathing, slow, ragged, so close it felt like it was inside the room with me. My body locked up, every muscle screaming to move, to scream, but I couldn't. My voice was gone, swallowed by fear. The shadow didn't move, just stood there, a dark stain against the faint streetlight glow. The breathing grew softer, then louder, like it was testing the air, searching for something. Me. I don't know how long it lasted, seconds, minutes, an eternity, but the room felt smaller, the walls closing in, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and something metallic, like blood. I wanted to rip the curtain back, to see what it was, but my hands wouldn't move. I just stared, heart hammering, until the footsteps started again, slow and heavy, moving away down the terrace. Creak, creak, until they faded into the night. I didn't sleep. I sat up, back against the wall, knees to my chest, watching the window. The curtain swayed slightly, though the air was still. My phone died sometime after 2 a.m., leaving me in the dark with only the flickering bulb for company. I kept replaying the sound in my head, the weight of those steps, the shadow's impossible height. Was it human? It didn't feel human. It felt old, like it belonged to the cemetery, to the church ruins, to something that had been here long before the hostel was built. When dawn finally broke, soft light spilling through the curtain, I forced myself to move. My legs were shaky, my mouth dry as sand. I opened the door, the morning air cool against my sweat-damp skin. The terrace was empty, but the dust on the boards told a story. In front of my window, the dust was disturbed, smudged, pressed down, like something heavy had stood there, shifting its weight. Not clear footprints, but marks, undeniable. My stomach lurched. I grabbed my backpack, barely pausing to shove my things inside, and went to find Wyan. He was in the kitchen, brewing coffee, the rich smell mixing with the salt air. He looked up as I stumbled in, my face pale, eyes wild. "You okay?" he asked, but his tone suggested he already knew. "I heard something last night," I said, voice trembling. Footsteps on the terrace, something outside my window. Breathing. A shadow. He stirred his coffee, the spoon clinking softly. "You're not the first," he said, that smile creeping back. "Old place. Things linger." "What things?" I snapped, fear sharpening my words. "What's out there?" He shrugged, eyes on the counter. "Dutch sailors, maybe, lost ones, or older spirits. This land remembers. They walk sometimes. That's all." "That's all?" I wanted to scream, but my voice broke. "It was outside my room, Wyan." He didn't answer, just sipped his coffee. I left, checking out without another word, my backpack slung over one shoulder as I hurried to the bus station. The town felt different in the daylight, alive, normal, with kids laughing and vendors calling out. But I couldn't look at the hostel as I left, couldn't glance at the gate or the cemetery beyond. On the bus, I stared out the window, the coastline blurring past, trying to convince myself it was just a bad night, just my imagination. But the sound of those footsteps followed me, heavy and slow, echoing in my mind. Creak, creak, creak. Weeks later, back in the safety of my apartment, I tried to research the town, the hostel, the cemetery. Most of what I found was vague. Old Dutch settlements, shipwrecks, local myths about restless spirits tied to the land. One forum mentioned a hostel in the area, unnamed, where guests reported footsteps at night, shadows that didn't belong. No one stayed long, I didn't either. But even now, when I close my eyes, I hear it. The weight of those steps, the ragged breathing, the shadow too tall to be human. And I wonder if it's still there, pacing the terrace, waiting for someone else to listen to the silence. Or worse, if it followed me, lingering just out of sight, in the quiet spaces where the world holds its breath.